we're going to talk about something that happened today in our home state of Idaho.
House Bill
710,
yeah.
what's being called now as the Children's School and Library Protection Act.
It's not even checking out. It's not saying, hey, you should read this book. It's if this book is accessible to the minor, they can file this lawsuit.
I mean, this is one of the worst pieces of legislation I've ever seen in Idaho, and that's saying something.
I mean, these politicians should learn. If they don't see the problem with this, if they don't recognize that there are issues here, or if they can't recognize the constitutional problems, they have no fucking business being legislators in our state.
Justice.
This is personal to me. I had a daughter come out to me several years ago while I was in a very high demand religion that frowned upon that. And I knew in that instance, I wasn't okay with that religion. I immediately purchased this book. This book is gay. I read it.
Would you recommend that book to people to read?
Yes, 100%, because I grew up with a lot of gay friends. I've been around a lot of gay people. I've known them, but I had very little understanding of what it meant to be a parent to a gay child. And this book was invaluable. It would be invaluable to her to be able to read this and learn and that sort of thing.
I mean,
and this book is, if you see any of the crusaders around the country trying to ban this one is on the list every time.
Sure.
Because they have specific lists and they try to point out, where it talks about like gay sex and stuff like that and how pornographic that is. And it's anyway. But
I mean, it even hurts like anyone trying to look up sex education.
It does.
That's right. We were talking about this and I thought of the 4th grade sex ed pamphlets that they handed out.
Yeah.
Pamphlets are covered in this.
Yeah.
Would not be allowed.
Yeah,
A
so what do you
depiction of a
do?
woman breast. How do you teach puberty when you can't depict genitalia? I'm going through the stages of grief. You're still in anger. I'm turning to sad.
Yeah. No, I'm still angry.
Yeah, I know. And I expect you to be there for a while. I don't think I'm ever going to get to acceptance.
No.
I made a comment. I grew up in the state. You were born in California. You came up in.
I was born in Virginia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. But you primarily grew up in California, right?
As a little kid, yeah.
And then moved up here at what age?
Like 13, 14.
Right. I was born in Arizona. I moved up here when I was like 6. And so
let me just jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Lest anybody go, oh, it's another Californian trying to ruin Idaho. My dad grew up here, was born here,
right.
and had an opportunity to move back to be by his family.
When you ask where you're from, I'm from Idaho.
Yes.
Okay. And
I
same for
consider this home. I graduated from high school here and I've stayed here.
And I've always considered myself wanting to be in the state. And I love the people that I meet on the street every day. I love so much about it. And today was the first time, and I mean this, the first time that I sat and thought, I don't think I want to raise my kids in the state anymore.
Right.
First time ever. Reading this, I went, what? You're going, I mean, it puts more of an impetus on parents to have things in their home that their kids can have, but not everybody has those resources.
No.
And that's the point.
Or it takes, and you and I both know this from religious upbringings. Sorry. But now in school, you may end up spending your time as a parent unteaching things. Going, what did you learn in school or what did you talk about? And you're getting this stilted, one-sided view that's very restricted, and you're either not going to get the whole picture or you're going to get wrong information, and you spend your time unteaching your kids the things they learn in school, church, etc., which is a scary proposition.
I have something that will probably irk you here that Little also said. He says he didn't want to send the message to lawmakers that if they do earnestly work to address his objections, he will simply veto their legislation again. So as long as you're a lawmaker that puts in the work on your own personal views, then you shouldn't be vetoed, right?
Then I'm not going to exercise the checks and balances that are in place in Idaho to actually
And
give a damn.
here's the other thing is, yeah, no, I don't know if I'll get into that, but I was just going to say that they likely had the votes to support a veto on this go round. And another edition, may not have had it, and maybe he didn't want that political fallout. I don't know. I don't care. If you think it's wrong, say it's wrong and treat it like it's wrong. That's what we need from leaders.
And this is what saddens me most is, we're talking law here. Our last podcast was us talking about Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And she made both of our lists.
She did.
At a performance that we did, we sang a Taylor Swift song, and this was not at a school, wasn't at a library, but
it was a school event.
Yeah, it was a school event.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that. So that could be under performance.
That falls under performance.
It does. Yeah, Baker's senior project would not be allowed under this.
Mm-hmm. Simply because of a few song lyrics.
But
a few song lyrics that 4 fucking adults played and sang.
That's right.
But one of the lyrics that I love of Taylor Swift is "Shade never made anybody less gay."
Yep.
And we sort of belted it out and
we played it punk style.
We played it punk style and we yelled it, and the crowd went nuts and they yelled it back. And it was like, for me, I told my wife that it was a moment for me being in Twin Falls. Mind you, I'm not homosexual. I don't have any homosexual kids. Nobody really, really close to me is homosexual. And that's, like your daughter that you've talked about is close to me, but we don't hang out all the time.
Right. Yeah.
But I see the influence and I see the damage that it does. And it was a proud moment for me to see our town yelling that back. And the crowd was not just a bunch. This wasn't like a left-wing production. No. We had a good mix of our community.
My parents were there.
Right. But everybody I knew.
Teachers, we had doctors, we had lawyers, we had community leaders.
White collar, blue collar. It was
Republican, Democrat, you name it. We had them all, and they sang the hell out of that song. And it's a really fun one, as an aside, because it kind of cuts out right there.
Yeah, that's right.
And so as a drummer, I can actually participate.
Oh, yeah,
and I was shouting back there. It was really kind of fun.
And this is where my thoughts go is I just had this experience, and saying those lyrics, it would be banned after July.
Mm-hmm. July.
But with that, everybody I've talked to today about this bill, and I've talked to probably 30 people, okay? And they're all walks of our community. Members of our staff, and we won't call out names. Some of them are more what you'd consider left-leaning, and some are more right-leaning. We mentioned this to them, and they all had the same reaction of, this state is fucked up. Sorry, Bonnie. Nobody that I know actually wants this.
Right.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Is what are these lawmakers doing?
Yeah. Where is this coming from? Because it's not coming from your constituents.
No. And it's like a political grandstanding that I don't get, and I don't get politics very well. I'll agree to that, but it doesn't feel like representation of the people. It just feels like grandstanding for grandstanding's sake. And the other part so that's the first part that I hate. The second part that I hate is even what we've participated in today. Us saying we're going to challenge the Bible.
Yeah.
I fully recognize and I hate the bifurcated nation that we live in. Everybody's at each other's throats. I hate Facebook. I don't like getting on and seeing the comments of everybody. Everybody's riled up and at each other's throat. And a thing like this, it's so broad allows guys like you and I that hate it to go, all right, we're going to make a point by challenging the Bible. I don't like being that guy.
No, nobody wants to be that guy.
No, because I don't like the law, period. I don't want to enforce it. But all it could do is create even more of a rift of the one group, say the Christian, and it's not just Christian contingency, but I'm going to say the Christian contingency.
For sake of this conversation.
The Christian contingency comes out and says, we hate the Twilight Saga and all the sex in it. Hide it. And then people that just think, no, we don't want banned books come in and go, well, look at the Bible. And this is not a new topic. This happens all the time. But under the guise of this damn bill, the Bible falls in it. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden they're arguing. And then it's like, well, you're anti-God. No, I'm atheist. And the whole thing just continues. And things like this political grandstanding just creates more problems amongst us.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to be Rodney King here. Can't we all just get along? Like, and can't we all just love one another?
Right. Like, you know me, we've joked before, and my kids tease me, I'm 50% punk, 50% hippie, which is a weird combination. I get, but
it's fully demonstrated in here. I wish we could show this wall.
Yeah. But yeah, I just want people to get along. But your comment about Twilight made me laugh because there's that great scene in Parks and Recreation. If you haven't watched it, they're putting together a time capsule for their city.
That's right.
And there's one guy who wants to put in the Twilight series in the time capsule because his daughter loves it so much. And it was one way he could ends up being that it was one way he could bond with his daughter. And so they're holding this public forum about what goes in the time capsule, and he wants Twilight in there. And this far right, Christian fundamentalist extremist stands up and says, this is overtly sexual and, it's terrible. We can't put it in there, everything that this bill is. And then the next person to stand up is the guy from the ACLU who's like, this has strong Christian themes in it. And that's, violates separation of church and state and and they're arguing over the same book for very different reasons, not going into the time capsule. And that's exactly your point. And that's what makes that scene so funny.
Exactly.
Is like, we're arguing over the same thing and they're just creating a rift and nobody wants this, except for, the lunatics around our country that are trying to push this. And they tried this shit in Idaho first because they think that we can get away with it.
I just remembered something from my childhood and I don't care. I've already exposed myself with my top 10. So let me just further expose myself. So I'm second of 6 kids and my older brother, John, fantastic human being. He always has been. He's always been better than me, just in many ways, but
far more handsome for sure.
I won't give him that, but better. Yes. So I remember John coming home and I was like probably 12 or 13. We were going so our middle school and high school were together at the time. Our town was so small and we had the same library. And John was really excited because it was Jurassic Park was coming out in a movie. And he was like, Steven Spielberg is directing it. I've read this book by Michael Crichton. I love it. He's like, I've read everything. I was like, what? And he's telling me all about Jurassic Park. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And I'm more interested in the movie. But then he was like, yeah, I've read all of his works. And I can't remember which book it was, but he was like, yeah, except this one book, because there was like a couple dirty scenes in it. And I was like, what did you just say, John? And John was like, and he was talking about, I didn't like it because it had these dirty scenes. And to hormone-driven young Steve McRae, I was like, tell me that title again. And that was the first Michael Crichton book I read because I was looking for the dirty scenes.
Yeah.
And you want to know something? I read the whole book and I loved it. There was a couple dirty scenes. It wasn't that much, but I loved the book. That book would be banned under this. And then I was like, I like this writer. And I ended up reading Congo and Jurassic Park, and which led me into an Isaac Asimov phase. Mm-hmm. It started
love Isaac Asimov.
Right. And it started this whole sci-fi thing for me as a young teenager. And that whole series would be gone. That whole series of events would be gone for me.
Yeah.
If this law was enacted. And yeah, that's a weird segue. I fully recognize.
I gotta ask, was it Sphere, the first one that you read?
No. It was the one based in Japan. Michael Crichton is based in Japan, and they have sex in a skyscraper. I don't remember any sex in Sphere. There might have
Wasn't
been
there?
some.
Sex
I
in the
think there
Skies-
was at the end. There was like
Well, either way, Sphere would be banned.
Rising
then.
Sun.
Yeah. Oh
Rising
yeah.
Sun was
something of the Rising
Yeah.
Sun. That's what it was. Land of the Rising Sun. But anyways, Michael Crichton. But it literally was my prurient interests that led me on a that ended up being an exploration of a lot of sci-fi.
Yeah.
And
a lot of reading.
right.
Just-
and a lot of reading. The last point I want to make, and it won't be the last point.
No,
But
we got a
here's-
lot more points to make.
Here's another point: is what's the number one thing I complain about young people, Brian?
Their phones.
Their phones. I hate phones so much. I see it in myself. I use my phone too much. I listen to podcasts. I've read books. I think that kids are being harmed by their phones, and I think there's statistics to show it. And what we're doing now, when we talk about harm, they say that
We're protecting kids from harm.
that we're protecting kids from harm, when all we're doing is saying we're taking away another thing. Go ahead and stay on your phone, which, by the way, their phone gives them access to the internet, and there's no
Yeah.
it's just bad. It's doing harm to their brains. Like, come on, give them a freaking book. And
Yeah.
okay, if it has something to do with homosexuality or sex, because you know what? They might not be learning about that at home anyways.
Right.
Like
I have someone very, very, very close to me who literally had to learn about sex by sneaking an encyclopedia into the bathroom at her home.
Wow.
And because her parents didn't talk to her about it.
that encyclopedia would be banned.
Mm-hmm.
I
And it's just a kid curious about everything that little kids are curious about.
yeah.
How do you teach art? How do you teach Renaissance
You can't
art?
show them David.
You can't show them David.
This
even-
is particularly funny.
They couldn't see the Sistine Chapel.
Even authors and Hemingway.
Yeah. Right.
Can't read The Sun Also Rises.
So nudity is defined in the statute as because you made me laugh because it was a nice use of prurient.
Yeah.
So way to go. I love words. But nudity means the showing of a human male or female genitals, pubic area or buttocks with less than a full opaque covering, or the showing of the female breast with less than a full opaque covering of any portion thereof below the top of the nipple, or the depiction of a covered male genitals in a discernibly turgid state.
What does turgid mean? I don't even know.
I think it means like semi.
Tell me when it gets to turgid, okay? Tell
Not
me.
quite turgid.
Turgid. Okay, thanks.
Zach, when you get a chance, if you could get us a definition of turgid, that'd be great.
Right.
I want to come back to harm in a second.
So
but
wait, hold on one second. So, David is okay,
yeah.
but David with Bathsheba, not okay. Is that right? Did I
There's
get
another
this
Bible
okay?
reference that would get the Bible
It's,
bait.
Oh no, not the Bible again.
It's being in a state of distension, swollen, timid.
Swollen.
Engorged, maybe.
Swollen. So a semi would do it.
A semi would do it.
I want there to be a case out there for somebody to argue a semi-flaccid penis, whether it's turgid or not, to get their $250.
What's the turgitude?
Turgitude is a great band name.
That's a great band name. Thank
Get out
you.
the turgometer.
All right. Zach's in it.
I do want to come back to harm in just a second, but you mentioned Jurassic Park. I had a thought today of like teaching kids history, even U.S. history. And you look and you go, and I don't know if very many people know this, but the United States has had 2 LGBT first ladies.
Oh, really?
Out. One was Rose Cleveland, who was not President Cleveland's wife, but he was unmarried at the time that he took office. And so under the archaic rules of the time, his sister was the first lady, and she was an out lesbian.
Wow.
And had a relationship with a woman, and so any history on her, any biography, any textbook that mentions her would be banned under this law. And Eleanor Roosevelt, and I bring this one up just because you and I have a special place for DC.
Yeah.
We've been there together as law students, presenting papers and things like that. I worked there. I worked for a Republican senator in the Senate
Who was caught doing gay things.
who was
That's the
caught
best
doing
part.
gay things. But the big deal in the springtime in DC are the cherry blossoms, right? Most
love it.
people have seen the images of the pond and the reflection of the cherry blossoms on that pond, and it's an incredible sight. And Eleanor Roosevelt was mostly responsible for those being brought over from Japan because of her relationship with and they've become this sort of iconic thing in DC. And Eleanor Roosevelt, despite being married to FDR, had a very, very long, throughout the duration of her marriage with FDR, relationship with a woman. A very passionate lesbian relationship.
So let's say there's a book about her, and one chapter in this book contains her torrent affairs, if torrent is even the right word.
Yeah.
Her homosexual affairs.
Again, just the act of being homosexual is considered
That's
sexual
right.
conduct under this law.
Again, and let's make that clear. It is not a homosexual act. It does not have to depict genital to genital contact.
It is the existence
of
homosexuality
under sexual conduct. Means any act of homosexuality. So if Eleanor Roosevelt, if that book contained that, it would be stripped away from the kids' library. They would not have access to it. Can't access that history book. And they would never be able to get to the chapter about the cherry blossoms.
They'd show up in DC and go, man, these trees are pretty. And they'd have no idea what was behind it.
And it might get into a different perspective, her perspective of FDR and all of the other history.
Well, the part that irks me as a creative here is that it says nothing herein contained is intended to include or prescribe any matter which, when considered as a whole, possesses serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors according to prevailing standards in the adult community with respect to what is suitable for minors. That's so subjective.
Mm-hmm.
It's so many layers of subjectiveness.
And that's the problem. Is I started off by saying it's overbroad, and that's and I go to this word overbroad because it's a challenge. So I'm a criminal defense attorney, and again, this is getting entered into the code. Well, there's no. This is not a criminal code. Truly, it's in Title 18, which is Idaho's criminal code, but there's no punishment other than a private right of action for $250. So I find that very weird. But I've challenged code sections before for being overbroad, saying, hey, you're covering too much and you're going to cover some protected speeches. And mind you, that's another part of this stupid law that's just, I mean, all the taxpayers are like, this was great. Do you know how much taxpayer money is going to go into defending a challenge of this? This stupid act of our legislators for grandstanding is going to cost taxpayer money to attorneys who none of us want to spend money on attorneys. But taxpayer money is going to go to fight this thing, and it's likely going to get struck down at a level. Well, I don't know that anymore.
It might not.
Yeah,
I mean, but if you want to talk about overbroad too, if you look at the actual law of this section, where it says, notwithstanding any other provision of law, a school or public library or an agent thereof shall not promote, give, or make available to a minor. Then it lists out pictures, photographs, drawings, films, you name it, books, pamphlets, magazines, goes on, lists out all these things. And then do you know what comes next? Or any other material harmful to minors.
Any other material harmful to minors. We'll get into this on another podcast, but it does bring back some religious stuff of there are serious arguments of harm that religions do inflict upon minors, depending on the religion and the extent of one's adherence to it.
That's not us.
It's not us criticizing religion.
Yeah, we're not. We're not sitting. We're saying we hear these arguments. People call our office and say, hey, we're getting harmed by a religion. So if it is other things being harmful, then you can challenge it now. I mean, it's like the only thing left for kids to read is going to be G-rated. C-spot run.
Yeah. I mean, they're lawyers are trained to come up with arguments, right?
Yeah.
That's what we do. There can be an argument to be made of what's harmful to minors. And it could be, I mean, this sounds dumb, but it could be this book is really fucking heavy, and if I hit my kid with it, it's going to hurt him. Right? Like, that's stupid. But the way this is written, it's an argument made under the law.
Well, even the interpretation, someone could say a book has symbolism for this. When,
right.
You know,
it's the Christian versus sex of Twilight.
I'm officially sad. And here's my sadness. And I said it a little bit ago is we've had, for the last 9 episodes of our podcast or multiple episodes, we've been talking about my top 10.
Yes.
And so, and I shared it today, and it was like the perfect segue, because if literally when we were talking about it earlier, I was looking through my top 10 going, all right, who in here would survive this if the lyrics, if they had the vinyl albums for the kids? Luminaires? No.
Nope.
Avett Brothers? Not a chance.
Nope.
Frightened Rabbit? Nope. Right?
Right. Not at all. Not even close.
Not even close. I could sing along.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan?
No.
The Dixie Chicks?
No.
I can't think of a violation of this one with the Dixie Chicks.
I mean, album art, maybe.
Album art. What was on the most recent one? Oh, come on. Some of those.
I know. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not even just books either, because libraries have lots of different
magazines.
Media.
They have
movies. They have movies.
Like any depiction of sex is now out. I mean, and that's the thing. Sex is such a human nature and part of art that we're just cutting out art.
I'm looking at my top 10. There's not a chance that any of them survive. And I mean, art influences us. I'm looking at my top 10. You know me, I'm a bleeding heart liberal card carrying member of the ACLU. That may not have happened had it not been for Bad Religion, Rage Against the Machine, Pearl Jam, Face to Face, Rancid. The list goes on and on and on. Or
right. You're a
learning
punk guy.
about learning
you're
about
half punk.
Yeah,
you're not getting anything in.
Learning about love and sex from bands like Frightened Rabbit and The National and the Lemonheads. It's just bonkers. You go, this stuff matters. It mattered to me. I mean, some of these bands, and obviously I'm a music nerd, but some of these bands really shaped how I felt about things, especially coming from a somewhat isolated rural town where we had to like special order bands like that in. But they were formative in my youth, and those experiences made me who I am today.
Yeah, let me give an example,
which is pretty fucking awesome, by the way. So
it is. I like you, Brian. We're bros.
I will say before you get too far, we are about almost an hour and 20 minutes in.
That's okay. All right. Well, let me give an example real quick, is because on my list is Frightened Rabbit. Brian introduced this. The first song that Brian introduced me to, what's the name of
Keep yourself warm.
Keep yourself warm. And it's all about having sex with somebody. It doesn't really fulfill the need to, like,
It
your
is
real
the
needs.
most romantic,
Crude song.
most romantic and thoughtful and meaningful song that is full of just incredibly crude references.
Sure. So Keep Myself Warm is one that would not survive this.
Not a chance.
But if you were doing a collection of Frightened Rabbit, that would be on there.
Oh, goodness.
But also, yeah,
Those
Yeah.
are lyrics.
the
Yeah,
lyrics
you're
are
reading it.
incredibly crass, but if you listen to it,
It's-
it is all about
it's not about having sex. But it would not survive this bill. But here's the point: is the other song that I love of theirs is called "The Loneliness and the Scream," and that song is about mental health.
Yeah.
And really, when I listened to it, I was literally on a plane flying home listening to it, and I teared up, and to where my mom turned to me and said, "Hey, are you okay?" And I just said, "Yeah, I'm listening to an emotional song." But it was, it's a heartfelt plea of anti-suicide,
Mm-hmm.
anti-depression, telling people that it's okay to have mental health issues,
Yeah.
telling people how to get through it. And if under this bill, Frightened Rabbit would be out
Yeah.
to where the loneliness and the scream would be screened from the youth because of some lyrics that would be misconstrued
Mm-hmm.
by a certain contingency that would challenge it. That scares the hell out of me.
Right. Because they have a song lyric that says it takes more than fucking someone to keep yourself warm.
That's right.
All this other stuff would be out the window.
That's right. And it's the same thing I did with the Bible. As I said, Songs of Solomon. Songs of Solomon. There's some great stuff in the Bible.
Right. Again, we have nothing against the Bible.
No. And the teachings of Jesus to love each other would be out because of Songs of Solomon or maybe Ezekiel.
Right.
And all of a sudden this book is, we have to piecemeal out. Is that where we're headed?
Right.
To where, okay, loneliness and the scream is okay, or Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are okay. Maybe Jesus can't be talking to a prostitute. Maybe we got to get that parable out of there because we don't want kids to hear about prostitute because prostitution is a sexual act. Like, what the fuck are we doing?
Right. The one I
Sorry,
looked up
Bonnie.
is Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Lot's there. And his town's wicked, and the Lord sends angels or men to destroy this town. And so Lot takes them into his house, and the guys are coming to, and they want to have sex with these visitors. And what does he do? He offers up his 2 virgin daughters instead. Say, do whatever you want with them, but we're going to protect these. And are we going to cut that out? Are we going to pretend like the Lord didn't send those angels?
Or is the whole book out? Or now,
Yeah.
because that's a part of it, we have to take the whole book out. And I don't know. Do you remember the back when DVDs were a thing, and there was a company that came out,
the Clean Play or Clear Play or
Clear Flicks, Clean Flicks or something.
Yeah.
And the essence of it was it took rated R movies and
made them PG-13.
Yeah, made them PG-13 because it would edit them. And there was a lawsuit that said that wasn't allowed. They couldn't do it because it cut through the artistic nature of the origin.
Yeah.
Is that where we're headed? To where
100%.
Right, to where, well, or are we just getting rid of all rated R things or PG-13? Like I don't know. I don't know where this heads, and all of it scares me no matter what. But
here I want to come back to harm, because that is the gist of this argument, right? Is that's how Lance Cloud responded to me is, thanks for your input, but we have to do something to protect children from harm. Okay. Let's do some things to protect children from harm, Lance. What's the number one thing that hurts kids? Guns. Guns hurt kids.
Yep.
That's the number one killer of kids.
And you just started a whole thing if anybody's watching.
If they're watching. But if you want to do something to protect harm, then
Regulate
that's where
guns.
you should start.
Yeah.
You would start with the biggest fish to fry.
But those rights shall not be infringed, Brian.
And yeah, right. But First Amendment rights, those don't matter as much. They can be infringed. That's just fine, Steve.
I know.
Because those rights get more political donations. And if you stand up to, gun haters, that's going to get you more. But guns, it's not books. It's not this that's killing my kid. It's a fucking gun in their schools, and they get shot up. And somehow we say thoughts and prayers are great. And that's what we need to do, but we can't infringe on those rights. They have no problem infringing on rights. Zero problems infringing on rights. Constitutional rights. And there's nothing in the Constitution that says the Second Amendment right is any more fucking important than the First, than the Seventh, than the Fourth, Fifth, you name it.
Sorry, buddy.
No, I'm fucking pissed off right now.
I know. I
and
can
you're
tell.
too much of a coward to do anything about it.
Yep.
Because it'll cost you politically, or maybe you're just horny for guns. I don't know. But if you're horny, we can't have that. So stop. You're fucking cowards.
Stay out of the schools.
And so come at me. I don't love guns. I don't hate guns either.
I feel like with today we've gone political and we've never had before, and which I'm fine with. I'm glad to get it out of the bag.
Everybody knew I was a hippie.
I've got an idea.
Yeah.
We etch porn onto every gun.
Yes.
And then it cannot enter a school.
That's right.
We're safe.
That's the law. Just write homosexual on every gun. I don't know. It's a pretty phallic description
It's
already.
a very turgid gun.
That's an 8 on the turgometer.
This was not as funny of an episode as the last one. This will likely be 2 episodes because of the length. So we'll have to do maybe a little scene of stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And if you saw that, we're sorry-ish. So let me ask this then. This goes into law in the state of Idaho. As lawyers, now we've been talking about Constitution. You and I don't primarily delve into constitutional challenges very often. It's not part of our practice.
It's not part of very many lawyers' practices.
I deal with the Constitution more in Fourth Amendment illegal searches from police, Fifth Amendment illegal questioning for police, Sixth Amendment right to speedy trials and right to fair trials. But First and Second aren't a big part of ours. So we're relying on the good attorneys that may bring challenges.
Right.
And again, we've shot from the hip a little bit today because this is so new. We might have got some stuff wrong. We might. Oh, sure. We get stuff wrong all the time. Lawyers and judges get stuff wrong all the time. Guess what? Legislatures get stuff wrong. Right. But in reading this, most of the time I like to end and go, all right, what can we do? Right. And this is, there's nothing in this law that gives a caveat. I mean, it's weird. Even like one minor point is it actually gives the right to a county prosecutor to enforce it against a school. Yeah. And what this law maybe didn't even contemplate is oftentimes the county prosecutors are not just those that enforce crimes, but they usually are the ones counseling with schools on how to handle things. They're oftentimes the lawyers for public entities like schools. That's right. So all of a sudden it tells them, hey, go enforce this against schools. And then who's defending the school? It's just going to cost more tax money that they're going to have to hire. Anyways, I digress. It doesn't make sense to me at all. Here's what do you do about it? Okay. Let's hear it. And it's not a great answer, but we need... This does not, other than private schools, it doesn't regulate the rest. Brian and I literally had talks today about why don't we start a private, not library, no, private book collection. Brian and I are we're in process of acquiring a 8,000 square feet of basement space in Twin Falls that we're primarily focused on looking at a spot for bands to be able to play. And maybe we'd do some other stuff there. But in brainstorming on this today, we thought, well, why don't we just have a banned books collection,
Right.
and have that,
Or banned arts, banned music, banned.
Yeah, we literally wanted to call the basement space Banned Arts Basement, but that's just us spitballing. But it goes to, and this is the libertarian in me, and there it is. I'm more libertarian. Is when stupid regulations are coming out, and I'm anti big regulation in any sort, but especially dumb morality based legislation.
Yeah.
But the counter to all crazy legislation as it starts in your home, for the love of all that's holy, start teaching our kids this stuff. Get them off their phone and give them books like that, and let them read and expose their minds, even if it's something that you don't believe. And it might be contrary to you. Expose them to it. Let them make a decision. And for me, that's the answer, but it's not a legal answer. It's a crap out answer, I feel.
Yeah. It's, tying it back into top tens. I've always taught my kids, when I tell people I've taught my kids from Rage Against the Machine lyrics, they always think that it's "fuck you, I won't do what you tell me."
Right.
But there's a line in the song Freedom that is, "Your anger is a gift." And it's repeated very quietly as it goes from chorus to verse to chorus. And it gets progressively louder throughout the song. But it really is true. Because there are times when it's perfectly acceptable to be angry. Mm-hmm. And that anger is a gift. You just have to channel it the right way. And I'm extremely angry today, and I've probably not channeled it the right way. Sorry, Lance. But no, I'm not. Anyway, but that anger can be transitioned into things like this, into teaching your kids what's right, what's wrong, what's, what it means to participate in government or to counter the government when they do stupid shit like this. Yeah.
And I think it's more than just teaching our kids. We have to look around our community and see those that don't have the ability. We've taken in people that, and by we, I mean our law firm. We had a senior come to us and express that he came from a very close-minded family, and his senior project was going to be shadowing us, and we exposed him to a lot of things, and we still support him. I don't want to say his name, but
sure.
But we still supported him, and whatever he wanted to look into, we were there.
Yeah.
And that was just, look around your community, see the people that are in need. I mean, more than anything, I think that would close us up, but that's a kumbaya thing that I feel is easy, much too easier said than done. I'm going to do that. I'm going to look in my community, look to the people that are in need, both in whatever way it is. But if they are in a too rigid of structure and need
turgid,
what's that?
Turgid?
No, rigid, not turgid. Okay. Turgid comes later. But if they're
a lot of jids in that category, huh?
Yeah, a lot of.
Sorry, you were making a.
Don't say jids.
Sorry.
It was too close to something else. There's Zach. I was like, did Zach just go? No, he said jids. Yeah. There was a D in there. No, but the idea is look around your community, and I'm going to make a valiant effort to check on the people.
Check on the people, and I pride myself in being somewhat of a non-violent person. I've been in 2 fights in my life. They were both in the 5th grade, and I don't get in fights. Even if I'm arguing with people, I don't, and they want to fight me, I don't fight. But there are ways to stand up to bullies. This is bullying.
Yeah.
This is 100% bullying. They're targeting gay kids, or gay people, period. And it's going to go beyond libraries. These people are bullies. And they can be treated as such. And you and I both know our experiences with certain people in this town who are bullies and have gone after libraries, gay kids, you name it. We have different approaches to how we handle those folks.
We've sued some.
You hate Facebook. I do too, but I've taken to, I don't argue on Facebook except with one gentleman. And I do it because, one, he's an asshole and he has no business preaching about Christ because he is the least Christ-like person I know. And I point it out to him every time he posts something on his public page.
That's hate.
That's hate. And it's one way to counter. And I don't do it because I get any sort of,
You do.
I do get some pleasure from it. But also there are kids reading those pages that are getting, shit shared with them, and they need to see that there's somebody sticking up for them. Be that person for those kids. Yeah.
Be that person.
And that's not to say I'm doing everything right. There are hundreds of ways to be that person. But find those ways and do those things. And hopefully we can make this state what it once was.
Yeah, it's we're in a tough spot. And again, I'm saddened by the idea that I'm looking and going, I might need to leave the state because I don't want my kids to be raised with the strictures of things like this. But I also don't want my kids to be raised around other kids that's parents don't see the problem in this.
Well, and here's the other thing, and I know we're trying to wrap up, but I'm going, you, the collective you in Idaho, hate Californians because they're coming here and they're trying to make our state like California. And what do you hate about California?
So many regulations.
You hate government regulation.
Oh my gosh.
And that has just ruined the Golden State, and now everybody wants to flee it. What do you fucking think this is? This is California in a nutshell right here.
No, this is California on crack.
Yeah.
Just your own version.
Own version.
I'm reading through just like Reddit posts and social media posts about this too. And someone made a good point that this also affects the free Wi-Fi that you get at libraries.
Yeah.
You'd have to show that you're 18 plus. So you're,
oh geez.
So if there's
kids who don't have that at home to do homework.
For homework, where majority of homework is online now, in school libraries, they can't use a computer.
Right. Yeah. It would have all sorts of access to these things. Again, this is cowardice. This is bullying. It's ridiculous. And they should be ashamed of themselves, and instead they're patting themselves on the back.
Yep. And
that's sad. And that's why these two episodes are a little bit sadder and not as funny as other episodes. We're going to also, I will say this.
Yeah.
Less drunk than we were last time.
Probably a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look at everybody. Thanks for listening to our 10th and maybe 11th episode of the podcast.
Yeah.
We got a little political this time. Feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah.
And I mean that. If you think that we are completely off base, reach out to us. But here's what I would ask is be respectful. And I promise, even if we disagree with you, we'll be respectful back. Let's start a conversation, not a internet fueled hate speech towards one another. Cause that's what I don't want.
Right. Lance Clow, you're invited on the podcast. We can talk about this if you want.
Yeah. 100%.
I think it would be good.
We'll have Taylor Swift and Lance Cloud.
Yeah.
Cause I bet that would be amazing.
That would be amazing. We'd have to get some really strong drinks that time.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We love you. If you want to pick apart Steve's top 10, please do so.
Yeah, do it.
Leave some comments or get in touch with us however you'd like, the two of you that are listening.
And just try to guess which band I listen to and just cry. Thanks, guys.